And here we are. Can you guys see the screen here?
Yep.
Perfect. And I'm still able to see most of you. Okay, so apps for the iPhone, iPad, Android tablet. I was thinking this could be part one, and maybe another time we can have another person, maybe Mike Reed, talk about other apps or add, more information. Basically, the idea is to expand the iPad or tablet to a marine information system, similar to a chart plotter. I will be talking about the, that's a Finnish word, Wärtsilä, iSailor. It used to be Transas iSailor, now it got bought up by Wärtsilä. And also going to talk about sensor integration, basically how to bring information from my wind instrument and from my AIS receiver into the iSailor app. I'll also, if we got time, briefly talk about tide and current apps, then the Ship Finder app, and the Wind Alert app. So we'll see how much time we got. Okay. So what chart plotters do is, besides just providing us with quality charts, electronic charts, they also integrate what I just talked about, information from our sensors, like the wind instrument, the boat speed, the GPS information that also tells us then speed over ground, for example. AIS is automatic identification system. So that's basically any boat that has an AIS transmitter can be viewed by other boats, and the position can be determined. So that's an aid in addition to radar. You'll be able to see boats with those AIS transponders, they're also called. If you have a receiver, you can see those boats on your chart, and you can see which direction they're moving. So it's a great aid, that really complements a radar. In my case, I don't have a radar. I don't know if I have enough space on my boat and my mast to have a radar, but let's keep going. So that chart plotter apps, I think that are pretty well known. There are a lot more, but the fairly well-known ones and the ones I've briefly looked at is Navionics, which is probably the most widely known, and it's available, almost all of them are available for the iPad and also for the Android tablet or Android phone. I'll be talking about the iSailor. There's another one called iNavX, and then TZ Time Zero iBoat. Time Zero is only for the iPad, and the cool thing with Time Zero is they're able to integrate radar into the app. So there's a radar screen. I believe you can even overlay that over your chart. Okay, so apps are considered redundancy tools. So you should have a primary chart plotter or an onboard GPS, and know how to use it, so you can have the app on your iPhone as a backup. And of course, use your eyes too, just use situational awareness. I've heard stories from people, putting everything on autopilot and creating accidents because they were not present in their cockpit. So you need to use common sense when we use electronic equipment too. The hardware requirements for smartphones and iPads and tablets are really that they are GPS capable, and most of them are. With the iPad, it's important that it's not a Wi-Fi iPad, but it's actually a cell-capable iPad that you can also, receive self-service with, because that makes sure that it actually has a GPS built in. There are lots of tablets like the Samsung Galaxy that already has a built-in GPS chip. But that's pretty important because otherwise, you know, we can't really see ourselves and our boat moving without a GPS receiver or a GPS chip. But of course, there's no cell signal required in order, you know, to use your chart plotter or your marine app, because all the maps and charts, they're going to be downloaded onto the app itself, so it's independent of cell phone reception, which is super important. Can you guys hear me okay? Just the way I'm talking?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so assets of smartphones and tablets and apps is of course low cost. So it's great to have a, you know, a second device. They're also really easy and intuitive to use. I think one of the biggest assets is also portability. We can, you know, take them anywhere. We can take them from one boat to the other. We can enter waypoints and route planning and all that stuff. We can do that at home or anywhere else. It doesn't have to be all on the boat. Yeah, here I'm saying, you know, you can take it on a chartered boat. And so it makes a lot of things a lot easier. Issues, of course, are reliability. So the main thing here is weather protection. I don't think most tablets and smartphones can withstand salt water over, you know, sustained amount of time, especially if you're like doing offshore cruising or you're sailing in bad weather. It's definitely the waterproofing. You can buy cases here. Trying to see if I can find. So I have my my old iPhone basically turned into my basically use that mostly as my chart plotter for my marine apps, and I've put that in a waterproof case with a battery pack backup pack, and that's the second point I'm making up here. You have to have also reliable power, and smartphones notoriously run out of power really quick. So what I have is just, you know, in my waterproof case, I'm also integrating a battery pack which extends the lifetime of my phone in this case, you know, dramatically. Issues for the apps itself is, and I'm drawing this information from a presentation from a boat show that John, I forgot his last name, he lent me his handout. So it seems like that most of the apps are using true north and they're not using magnetic north, which, you know, that's what we see on our compass. And I looked at my app and for some reason, yeah, that's nothing I can switch. It's very interesting. I'm not clear what the reason is here. And by the way, if anyone has a question, you know, you guys feel free to interrupt me and then we'll just go from there. And basically the difference between true north and magnetic north is called the variation, and it depends on where you are on the planet, because the magnetic north pole is somewhere in northern Canada, so it's not exactly on geographic north. And in the Puget Sound area, it's somewhere around 16 degrees that the magnetic north veers off of geographic north. So the correction is actually 16 degrees east. So that means if you have a bearing on your compass of 15 degrees or 16 degrees, in order to correct that to true geographic north, you have to deduct, you know, move the bearing west. So basically then you end up at 0 degrees or exact north. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. The last thing is, yeah, chart accuracy it's generally really good. The app that I'm using, the iSailor, the chart accuracy, like right now here is about 12 to 15 feet, so it's extremely precise. And typically that far out strips the accuracy of the chart itself, especially in areas that are, I would say probably especially outside of the US and Europe, maybe chart accuracy can be actually really flawed, to say the least. I've heard like somewhere in the South Pacific, it could be like several miles off. So you've got to really rely on your eyesight to support the chart. Okay. So before we talk about the iSailor app, I just wanted to quickly share how I installed my wind instrument and my AIS receiver. So here's my mast. And there's the German flag, and then the CYC Burgie is flying.
They're in the wrong order, Andreas.
I was going to say the same thing.
They're in the
Of course. Right. That's funny. Yeah, so just on the close-up, you can see the wind instrument right up there. I did install that just a couple of weeks ago. Oh. And the cool thing about that wind instrument is that's the masthead unit. It's actually wireless. So there's a tiny solar cell on top of it that you can't see from below that supplies it with enough electricity so it can keep sending signals. It was really thrilling to me because it didn't require fiddling a big, a long power cord through the mast.
Andres, that's so cool that you got up there and were able to install it. Good for you.
Yeah, that was quite an adventure. So this picture, you can see me up there on the mast. I did get climbing gear. I got, already have a harness. I got, forgot what those things are called. The words are slipping me right now. That you kind of slide up the halyard. Ascenders, that's it. I have 2 ascenders. One of them has a sling. And also a Prusik knot, as a backup in case one of those things fails. So that was really great. I've never done that, and I figured it out, and I'm really proud of myself that now I feel actually quite comfortable climbing my mast and doing stuff up there, which it was hard to conceive that that's going to work before I did it. So it's cool. Okay. So we just saw the masthead unit. This is the receiver or the base unit. And that's in a small locker on my boat. And on the right, you can see the antenna cable. And on the left, there's a power cord and there a couple other cords to hook it up to, for example, to the wind instrument display in my cockpit. And those connections are hardwired. The only wireless connection really is, up to the masthead unit. So this is the display unit in my cockpit. Yesterday, yeah, there was, it came straight north, almost 10 knots. That was probably in between one of those gusts. I think they went up to 25, 30 knots. Okay. So I was hoping for this talk, I already figured out how to connect the data input for my wind instrument with my iSailor app. This is the display on the iSailor app, but you don't see anything in there because somehow at this point I haven't quite figured out how to do the data connection. This is the other device that I installed. It's an AIS receiver. AIS is the basically gives you the position of other boats. And this device also is like a multiplexer, you call that. It takes data from other instruments and then it can send them out. Either via Wi-Fi, or I can send them out, in a hardwired connection with, I think, the NMEA protocol. What you see at the top of the picture is it's a signal splitter for the VHF antenna. So the signal gets picked up by the VHF antenna and then it goes down through the splitter. That splits it into the AIS signal and then the other, into the VHF signal for my radio. That's just a brief scheme here. Number one is basically the antenna. Number two, that circle is the splitter. And then it goes from there, that's all hardwired, goes into the AIS receiver unit. And then from there, it goes by per Wi-Fi signal, in this case to my iPhone, where then it interacts with my iSailor app. And it's pretty spectacular. So this is a screenshot from the iSailor app. And those little triangles there, those are all boats that actually have an AIS transponder, so you can see them. The ones that are not moving, you just see that triangle. And the ones that are actually moving, they have, you see that right in the center of the picture, those two that are kind of close to each other, they have a little wand that points basically into the direction that the boat is moving. So that's the COG, or the course over ground, basically. This is a close-up of Gate 5 and Gate 3 of the Squalico Marina here. And so you can just see there's a boat right in the center here that is moving into the slip. You can see that, because it has that pointer wand kind of. And then the other boats, most of them, they don't. There's also a small distinction. There's the Class A, which is like, I believe it's commercial boats. They, by law, I believe, have to have an AIS transponder so that they can be seen. They're in a lighter green, which is like on the bottom of the picture. The app also displays their name. So down there you can see something like Deco Bay or Vampy. The Class B transponders, I believe, are mostly for pleasure boats, and those are in kind of a more blue-green, like more on the upper portion of the screenshot here. So this concludes the pictures that I took. I was thinking now we can go straight into the app, and I can screen share the app, and we can play a little bit with that. Does anybody have questions at this point? Anything, any suggestions, questions?
Andreas,
Mm-hmm.
what was the highest speed of the gusts yesterday recorded by your new wind feature?
It was about 25,
Okay.
but only as long as I was watching.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't, record like it. At this point, I haven't figured out if there's a way to kind of record, like a wind gust curve, and that it shows you over time, what the gusts are.
Andreas, you picking up my sound?
Do I?
Andreas, are you picking up my sound?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I was just going
to
comment on iSailor, kind of an interesting story.
Yeah.
This was a couple of years back. Deb and I were sailing up on my older boat.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the Gulf Islands, and we were just, I forgot exactly what we were doing at the time, but we were going to some area that I was unfamiliar with. And on my old boat, I didn't have chart navigation. I had rudimentary chart navigation, and I remember as we were going around Saturna Island to Tumbo Island, Deb said, well, there must be something on the iPhone that'll work. And she, because we're right under Saturna Island with very good cell connection, she downloaded iSailor and then downloaded the US charts, which are free, Canadian charts are free. And we had charts for Tumbo Island, which thank God we did, because very difficult for the sail. And she downloaded and installed that within, probably 10 or 15 minutes. And
Wow.
I really liked iSailor ever since, as a backup mostly. The other thing I was going to just mention when you were talking, we have a newer boat now with a more sophisticated system that my boat partner Alan is mostly installed, and it has a Lawrence navigation system, which actually neither one of us think very highly of. And then we've got many other navigation systems on there. And it's all wired with NMEA backbone.
Right.
The main charting navigation system I use is something called OpenCPN, which one become familiar with if you've. It's a free program, very sophisticated, used by world sailors, and there's a $30 dongle that you can plug into it that where you can get GPS on it, and I won't go into it too much. But one of the things you should be aware of is that you said that, well, to get GPS readings, we have an inReach, which will give GPS data wirelessly. We usually take the inReach with us when we're going kind of beyond the area that we're familiar with. And that will send out a wireless GPS signal, and we can pick that up on the iPad. So you don't need to have a GPS iPad as long as you have wireless GPS. One of the things.
That's right. That's totally correct. And I think for me, it was like more to simplify, because it can be, fairly complicated to try to figure out all that.
Right, exactly. And I know this is maybe really sophisticated for some people, some of the electronics here, it's all online, I don't even consider myself an expert. But we have an NMEA backbone that some of our navigation together. And you can buy for about $200 a dongle, which plugs into that NMEA backbone, just plugs right in. And it will send out a wireless NMEA so that your iPad can pick that up. Your wind instrument information, your GPS, anything else plugged into NMEA. So I know that's kind of advanced, stuff, but if anybody wants to email me, and it sounds like Andreas knows most of this stuff too. It's good to, stuff's really integrating now. And so there you go.
No, I'm glad you're talking about that. So basically this AIS receiver I have, creates, I think it's maybe a little imperfect version of a backbone, because you can feed it, hardwired, for example, the NMEA data from the wind instrument, for example. And it's supposed to then send those out wirelessly so it can be picked up by my iPhone and then integrated into the chart. And I was pretty excited, but I did that yesterday, and there are often a lot of little details that you might not think of, and so it hasn't worked yet. But I think if I spend a little bit more time and maybe talk to people, sometimes there's something off with the protocol or whatever, just a tiny thing. So I'm still hoping that I can make that work so it actually gets displayed in the iSailor app. As well as the AIS data, they also get wirelessly transmitted to the iPhone and then can be displayed. However, iSailor also offers a version. It's called the Internet AIS that you receive through your cell phone reception in areas like in Puget Sound area. That is actually a great tool, because most areas have somewhat fairly reliable Wi-Fi reception. So that option allows you to see and integrate those data without having an AIS receiver on your boat. I just subscribed to that. Like all those little things, everything costs extra in iSailor. So, it can kind of add up over time. But so I have both now. I have my own AIS receiver, but I'm also just subscribed to that internet AIS. And I will see that once I get into the app here on the Zoom call.
So Andreas, Andy here.
Hey, Andy.
Just following up
Yeah.
Ken's comment. You're reminding me that for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been sort of coming off a Raymarine chart plotter that found the most interesting places to automatically go blank. Typically in a narrow channel, somewhere way off the grid, like northern BC or Haida. And I can't tell you how many times.
Yeah.
Oh, let's turn on the iPad and bring up iNavX. Thank goodness we know where we are. We know where the rocks are.
Right. That's cool. So you're using iNavX is the one that you've been more familiar with?
Yeah. And so now we have a whole new electronic system, and let's see where it decides to fail. And once again, we'll probably be back to the iNavX. But although I am going to look into the iSailor, it looks really good as well.
I like it as it seems to allow for a lot of integration. And of course, every little thing, that you turn on costs like $8 or $9. So, to allow it receiving AIS data or to allow it receiving wind data, everything costs a subscription fee. But I think that's the trend of the times. Like there's nothing anymore you just buy in one time and then it's there. Everything is like based on a subscription service these days. And that's true for every software basically these days. Okay, so what I'll do now is go into the app. And I hope this is going to work for me right now. Okay. Start broadcast. Okay. So here basically you can see my iPhone now. And I'm going to the iSailor right here. You can see that. Okay. So I'm thrilled this is working in Zoom. So this is Bellingham Bay as seen in the iSailor app, and we can already see there is a moving triangle right by Eliza Island, kind of on the bottom part of the chart here. That boat is called Sodad, or something like that. And so, yeah, it's easy to zoom. And at different zoom levels, the depth soundings appear and disappear. Let's see. There it disappears. A nice feature that you can add, you can determine the depth of it, is you see the red lines. Those are basically, I believe, ISO lines of the same depth of 10 feet. So that kind of shows you, like, for a sailboat, that would be kind of a danger line to go further, closer to shore. So I find that kind of a helpful feature. If we go over here towards Bellingham, it gets like really messy because of all the AIS displays with names. As you can see, I'm zooming in here. There's like a forest of boats in the marina. And, you really have to zoom in to make kind of a little bit more sense of it. And there you can see the lower dock with the lighter green. Those are probably fishing boats. There must be commercial boats because it's the AIS Class A. And then the pleasure boats are above with a little bit more bluish green. So let's see where my boat is. My boat, I'm right here. Blue arrow.
You should start sailing.
I'm sorry?
You should start sailing so we can see your boat move.
Right.
I know. I think that will be a little bit overwhelming right now on a Zoom call. So I just wanted to basically go through the features real quickly of what we see. There's a navigation bar on the top. You can see it gives you the course over ground, and as long as the boat's not moving, it's completely useless. So right now the number is completely meaningless. And the speed, SOG, is speed over ground, is 0 because I'm right here and I'm not moving. You can basically, and then you see that little boat to the very right there. If you click on that, you kind of center the map to your boat. And if I do that here, you can see the map, my boat is right in the middle of the map now. It also tells you that north is up. You can change that in settings. You can go with your bearing up, with your course over ground up. There are a number of options you have. If I slide the navigation bar to the left, it shows me basically the waypoints data. I don't think I've set any waypoints, so that the numbers there don't really mean much right now, I think. Actually, I did set one waypoint, a little bit off in the bay here, a mile, 1.6 miles away. But basically, it also gives you like an estimated time of arrival. It gives you like the distance to waypoint and the bearing to waypoint. And if you have several waypoints, you can switch back, toggle back and forth between those. If I slide the whole thing again, it tells you what the operating system is. It tells you the accuracy, which is 15 feet, pretty great. And then the latitude and longitude, which I think is a helpful thing. If anybody ever asks, we can just look at that. And I believe that's the end of it. I'll slide that back. So when I'm sailing, I'm usually just using this course over ground and speed over ground. I'll zoom out again. So here you can see I did a waypoint right there. There's a way to erase that, but I kind of wanted to talk. Actually, maybe I should talk about waypoints. So below you can see a little tab, Tools. It's at the very bottom. It says Tools. If I click on that, it brings up the tool menu. To the very left, you have waypoints. Then the next one is you can just determine an object and mark an area. For example, I click right here. Do you see that little red cross? Then I click up there and I can put a marker there, like a waypoint marker. You can see now it has a waypoint marker there. And then it's also displayed right here on the bottom. It says, the date and then created. I can swipe there and delete it again, and then the mark in the chart disappears. It allows for other things. You can measure distances, from you to some objects. If I go to the next tab, it's the track recording, which I find really helpful. You can just say start track recording, and then it's going to start, tracking every movement you do. It's kind of fun to look at it when you're at anchor. You can see how you're swinging around. I'm going to say now, stop tracking. Which brings me, initially I didn't know about this app, that it has an anchor alarm. So in the early days, I just used the tracking, it would show me like if I'm actually dragging anchor or not. But now you can also go, if I go into the settings, I go to alarms, and there's an anchor watch. And then you can basically tell it, like what kind of a radius is watched. And let me see, it probably draws a circle around my boat now, which is not visible. So if I go another further tab on the toolbar here, this is the AIS. It displays basically all the boats that your AIS or that internet AIS from picks up. The next one is a service that I just subscribed to, which I find is kind of cool. So if I zoom out a little bit, you can see Bellingham Bay. If I come over to, I'm going to zoom out far enough so that the soundings disappear. You can see those arrows here with numbers on them. So between Lummi Island and Orcas Island to the left, Lummi to the right, right in the middle there of that circle, you see that arrow and then the 0.4 knots. That is the current at 11:48 a.m.
Wow.
So you can see at the bottom there, it allows you to kind of scroll forward and backward in time. You can even set a date in the future or date in the back. And you can see when I'm toggling that those arrows start moving. Am I going back in time or I'm going forward in time? Those arrows start moving. So I think that's pretty cool because it's like integrated. I don't need to pull a separate app to work with tides and currents. Okay. And then last on the very right, there's the settings bar. I don't think I want to talk a ton about it because, there's so much you can set and integrate and, purchase charts and all of that. So, we see here, north of Lummi Island, there's a whole bunch of boats that are gearing towards Hail Passage right now. And as you can see, they're going against the current, but it's only 0.3 knots, so it's not a big deal. One important thing here is the soundings are actually in feet.
Oh.
And not in fathoms. And I'm not sure. I could not find so far a way to change that in the chart settings. I'm sure there is a way, I just haven't figured it out. I probably need to spend a little more time with the app. You can see all the buoys displayed in the chart, the yellow and the red. The post point buoy is pretty much right in the center right now. And if I can bring the tools bar down to make the chart bigger and bring the navigation bar up. Oh yeah, so I think what I was going to briefly show is waypoints. So that's also fairly intuitive. If I go to my boat, actually I already made a waypoint, which is right in the bay here for my boat. So if I want to, for example, go to Vandovi Island from here, I'm going to click on that waypoint and it lets me edit it. I can either edit the waypoint itself like this and move it around a little bit. I can add onto it. And, in order to do that, I need to zoom out of the map. So I want to cross the bay now. I'm going all the way to Eliza. Right here. There's a boat just about to round Eliza Island. Then I click on the plus sign and it adds that waypoint. Now if I want to go to Vandovi Island, I do one last waypoint and say plus, and then I say the check mark. So I have a route now, and the route is also displayed on the bottom here. It's kind of highlighted in blue. It tells me exactly what the length of my total route is. It says it has 4 waypoints. And I've clicked on info. There's a whole bunch more stuff that it shows me. And once I'm on the route, it shows me then an estimated arrival time and an average speed and all of those things. So I think that's pretty cool. What I usually do is I set a route with waypoints and then I watch myself correct my course, just based on what I see in the app. And I've been sailing, at night with that, and it works pretty great.
Cool.
Okay, are there any questions or suggestions at this point?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you do the same thing with NavX?
I'm pretty sure that most of those apps, they have all those features. And everyone is probably a little bit different. Like Navionics, they might have a little bit better, it kind of looks more like 3D. So each of the apps or softwares has probably their strengths. I still find iSailor is fairly intuitive, and still I think it's relatively simple. I think the trouble on the iPhone is, of course, that it's very small, and very quickly, you get overwhelmed with symbols. The nice thing here is then, it starts kind of thinning out as you zoom out, it's thinning out. And eventually then the soundings disappear, so it's much easier. Like here, I can see my route now much, much clearer.
And my experience in using different navigation systems is they all pretty much have the same features.
Mm-hmm.
And the real difference comes down to ease of use, how the user interface is. That's one point. And the other one is how much you're paying for it.
Right.
A lot of the older systems, Raymarine, Navionics, they're very antiquated. And I find the user interface extremely difficult to use. iSailor is amazingly easy to use. If you've looked at maybe a few, videos on what its features are, it's very quick to pick up, especially if you know a navigation system. OpenCPN, which I'm a big fan of, all the same features, free, doesn't cost anything. So most of them are pretty similar. I like the visual interface of iSailor. It's nice. I have a friend who uses Navionics who loves that. It has the ability for people to, it has crowdsourcing. So you can say, hey, there's a rock here. Appear on the official charts. That's kind of an interesting feature. Really, most of these nav systems are very, very similar in their features, but the differences are cost and ease of use.
Right. You can also, like in iSailor, you can mark, I showed you briefly, you can mark something as a waypoint. You can also mark it as, you can put a rock symbol, for example, or a reef symbol on it. So, if I'm out and I find something that I don't find adequately marked on the chart, I can add that symbol to my chart and mark that.
So, Andreas, I have a question.
Yes.
Because I have iNavX, I've had that for a while, and I just got Navionics, but my iPhone doesn't appear to have the integration with AIS. I have a separate ship finder app.
Right.
It's the free version, which doesn't give me a whole lot either.
Right.
So I just looked at it, and it's showing nothing in Bellingham Bay because these things are not turned on, or I haven't paid enough. So how do you know if you get? And I'm getting a new iPad for my birthday. Thank you, Chuck. How do you have to buy a separate piece of software or something to put that on your phone or iPad?
Do you mean the AIS, for example, that you see other ships?
Yes.
Yeah, so there are two ways in iSailor, and I think what I like about iSailor is all that integration is possible, because I believe iSailor or Wärtsilä, that mother company now, they make, it's all like commercial, they make software and equipment for big boats. So I think it's all about integration. So I'm not totally sure how well all the other apps do that because I don't know them that well.
Okay.
But that's what I like about it. So with AIS, there are two ways. in an area that has adequate cell phone service, you can do the internet AIS service. And, you know, it's a subscription fee. It's like $15 a year, I think. And that's what I have right now. That's basically what you see, all those triangles here, all the boats. That's that internet service. That's the one thing. The other way is to have your own AIS receiver or transponder that can also integrate. And that's what I did. You know, I showed you the photo of that AIS receiver, and that will also send a Wi-Fi signal to your phone. And I believe they use like a TCP/IP protocol, you know, to connect the app to the Wi-Fi device.
So it's either a hardware or a subscription service that I would add to my.
Exactly.
Okay.
And what I like about it, of course, I've used the ship finder for quite a while, but I think those data are not always really up to date.
I have the free ship finder. I'm too
Right.
I go for the thing, and I'm looking at Bellingham Bay now. There's nothing at all in Marina, because
right, and so you can already see, you know, like this is a lot more comprehensive. So I would trust that a little bit more.
Yeah.
See, I see in iNavX they just started selling a subscription for AIS that seems to have the same features as you're showing us here, but it's
great.
It's $75 for a year.
Oh, yikes!
So pretty hefty price, huh?
That's a lot cheaper for the iSailor. Yeah.
So modern, if you have purchased a recent VHF, a marine band radio, the better ones have built into it. So the way receives AI is actually over our radio, and that is transmitted via NMEA backbone to our navigation devices. So you can buy a separate standalone device like Andreas.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can, if you have a current VHF radio, it may be integrated into that unit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a handheld VHF, and I went for the cheap version. It doesn't have AIS, and on my boat, yeah, she's got like the first VHF radio ever made, I think.
Yeah, I believe you can, even in the handheld ones these days, you can get the AIS features too, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
You do have a handheld.
I have the PNW Currents app, and it's just all it does is do currents. And it's basically the Washburn tables as an app, and I think it's like $10, but it's not a subscription. You just buy it once and it's there.
Right.
If that's all, you know, that's quick and easy to, you know, if that's all I want, I can just pull that up and see the currents.
Right.
That's one of my favorite apps.
Yeah.
Hey,
so, yeah,
I've got a question.
So I was going to briefly talk about those apps too, because I have those. Let me broadcast again here. So you guys probably going to start seeing the screen sharing here. Okay, so here are the apps. I was going to talk about the ship finder, you know, as Kathy said. If we click on that one, you can see what they display. And there's not a whole lot you can see in Bellingham Bay. But, you know, it's the ship finder Lite, so it's possible that the version that you pay for shows you more or more detail. The nice thing is, you know, if it's all integrated in the same chart, you know, I don't have to toggle between apps, you know. It's nice. It costs a little bit more, but I find that really, really nice. So when we get to tides and currents, There is the Tides app here. I like that because it shows you the nice, those harmonic curves here. And you can flip it, forward and see what the tide's going to look like. You can, you can go to any particular part of the curve, and that shows you the, the tide, how many feet it is, and then also the time of day. So that's a decent app. There's another app that is more helpful when it comes to currents. It's called the Tides and, let me look at this, My Tide Times. Right on the bottom middle here. If I click on that one, it shows a satellite image with the tidal stations. I can see there's always a little bit of a delay here with zooming, but you see the different tidal stations. I can go on Bellingham, and then I can say view tides. Yeah, it's not. There we go. It shows me the tides, and you can flip that forward too. It also, on the bottom menu, you see currents. I can also see what the currents are. I can go forward, to Wednesday and Thursday and see, how the currents are for that particular tidal station. Well, in Bellingham, there's not a whole lot going on, obviously. We can go to Hale Passage. I usually love going to like Point Migley on the north end of Lummi Island. If you go to currents, it's actually not much right now, 1 knot. So those two apps I find really helpful because they give me good visuals. With the integrated currents and the iSailor app, I don't like those quite as much, but they work. One more Tide and Current, it's not really an app, it's a website. If I click on that, it's going to route me in my browser here to the Deep Zoom nautical charts website. And you can see here, I think this is Whidbey Island, so if I zoom out, I'm trying to click off, oh yeah, here we go. So bring the chart a little bit more into the forefront. We can see the San Juans. And the cool thing about that thing is you can go to any day and then you can slide, and you can see how, we slide with your finger and there are arrows depending on the current, they're really big or they're not as big, and you can see how those currents evolve. I find that kind of the best visuals. The quickest I can see, oh man, like right by Cypress Island, there's like a 2 knot current on September today at 3:53 a.m.
Have you tried iTides, AYE Tides?
iTides?
It's called AYE Tides. And it's I think it's integrated in
Navionics
and iNav.
Okay.
App too.
I see.
It's quite a nice Tides app too.
Nice. And it's called, can you say that again?
AYE, so iTides.
Okay. Great, I'll look that up.
Yeah, it's a good one. And also the Canadian ports and passages charts, that used to only come in paper. They're now available as an app. I recently discovered. So instead of buying the book, that shows the whole Salish Sea end for each hour of each day, you have to search the page number in the tables in order to get the currents for that day and hour. Well, you can now get that in an app, I think for $16.
Yeah, that's
way easier to use.
Or PNW currents.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm kind of personally really visual person, so I love when you just see the arrows, kind of going around and with the numbers on them.
Yeah.
It's probably just a matter of preference. Yeah, so that pretty much concludes what I was going to talk about today.
I've got a question, Andreas.
Yeah.
This is Lori. So with that AIS data download that you get, what percentage of vessels do you think you're capturing?
With my, I'm really getting feedback right now. Okay. Yeah, that's better. With my own AIS, that goes to the antenna, you have the same range as a VHF radio, so you can see boats as far as like 10 to 20 miles. It should catch, most of the boats, but I'm not sure what the percentage is with the internet service. Yeah, I don't really know. I think it's pretty high.
If I could jump in here, you'll only see boats that have an AIS transponder.
That's right, of course, yeah.
Boats are required to have them. A lot of non-commercial boats, recreational boats, some have them, some don't.
Right.
Usually it's the big boats, but not always. Sometimes it's small boats. They're great to have. Everybody should have one. And in fact, in the future, they may be required for boats over, who knows what, 30 feet or something like that.
Right.
But commercial boats are required to have them, and it's very useful, especially when you're in shipping lanes or out in the straits, and there's a towboat coming through. Really useful to be able to see them.
Right, and I've had several situations where sometimes, depending on the sky and the lighting, it's really hard to see a big ship coming. And I could see them then, on the AIS display much, much quicker. So I find that really helpful. And it's true, yeah, only boats who have a transponder that can be seen. So that, in some way, it doesn't really replace a radar. But, I can be sure that I'm not going to be colliding with a tanker. Most likely I'll be colliding with a little John boat, right? Little fishing, recreational fishing vessel. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
I think we should sing to Kathy.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. So
Who
let's
can
do it
sing?
together. Well, we'll have to unmute ourselves, or whoever wants to unmute. Okay. Shall we do it? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kathy. Happy birthday to you.
Come on, you guys, let's jazz it up. You say it's your birthday.
This is a demonstration of why there aren't people doing musical collaborations on Zoom. There's a delay. There's a time delay.
Right.
You can't get rid of it.
Right.
So
it's challenging.
Yeah.
These are the drive-by balloons.
Thank you.
I'm going to check out.
Okay.
Yes. Well, thanks everybody for listening.
I invite everybody to come and listen to, go on Vimeo and look for True Tone Audio, or go to truetoneaudio.net and look for their live things. They're the ones who are doing Free Harmony on September 17th with a 5-piece band, and the Walrus is my other 5-piece band. We have our new guitar player that we're introducing, and so that's going to be on September 18th. They're both
Okay.
8 p.m.
The annual Virgo party.
Well-
So Eric and Chuck are Virgos too.
So Chuck, did you pay your advertising fees to the club?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we should
Okay.
give him a fee.
All right. It was wonderful to see everybody. Thanks so much, guys, for joining.
Louder.
Thank you, Andreas. Very,
Yeah.
very well done.
Great presentation.
See you guys next
Yeah,
time.
Andreas.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.